everybody, and welcome back to Dispatch Game Day, sponsored by Jets Pizza. My name is Ryan Antonucci, joined here by Quentin Bursch, and in a couple minutes, we're going to take you down to the field to get underway with this third-round state playoff matchup in the quarterfinals against St. Rita. St. Rita private school coming to us from the city. Q-Tip, these Huskies, you haven't been with us for a while, so welcome back. How was wedding, right?
You know what? Yeah, it was a great wedding. My brother got married, and he's there with his beloved wife, and we're back here in Illinois. I missed the first week of the playoffs. How did that go?
So first week of the playoffs, Huskies won 50-0 against the Walter Payton Grizzlies. That game, a little cold, Halloween night, not much of a fan section, kind of a boring game, but Huskies put it together. They came out with a big win. Then last week, I had the opportunity to go down to Richards High School in Oak Lawn, where your Huskies pulled off another huge victory, 42-21 against number one seeded Richards. Now again, one seeds aren't always accurate of who's the best in 7A, but nevertheless, that game I expected to be much closer, like a one-score game. I did think Hersey was going to win, but they absolutely blew them out, dominant from the start. Brandon Jenkins, huge game, a couple turnovers too by the Huskies defense, which aided them to that victory. But now they take on the St. Rita team, and man, this team we don't know much about. They play in a really tough division. They played against teams like Mount Carmel, Brother Rice, ICCP, and these are private schools that never really play these public schools. And the way I look at it, the St. Rita team has lost to some of these really good private league schools. You're talking about Mount Carmel, Brother Rice. They lost Mount Carmel, Brother Rice by 3 scores. But then they've beaten up on other really strong private league teams, like they lost to Nazareth Academy and St. Francis, who are two very good teams, but they beat up on St. Patrick. St. Patrick is a team that we saw in our Week 0 game. We did not broadcast that game live, but we were there watching, and that final score of that one was 49-14. I think if we would have played that Hersey St. Patrick game in full, I think it would have been a pretty similar score. Don't you think?
I agree, totally.
So, I don't know. All I know is that the Huskies are rolling right now. What do the Huskies need to keep doing going into this game to, keep up their momentum and get a big win?
I think one thing that we don't normally see from the Huskies is them having less passing yards than rushing yards. And in the game last week against Richards? Yes, Richards. I don't want to say it wrong because don't they have 2 names actually? Isn't it something Richards?
They're from Oak Lawn. It's like on the state bracket, it'll say like Oak Lawn Richards,
okay, yeah.
But they're just Richards.
Because I know it was really far away, 55 minutes. It was my sister's birthday. No excuses though. I should have been there, But we had 350 net rushing yards and only 150 net passing yards. So there you see Brandon Jenkins had an absolute stunner of a game. And it really just shows how dynamic this Hersey offense is, because I think that's one of, if not the first time this season that we have had more rushing yards than passing yards. And also, Jake Narrott had a great season before this, and going into the playoffs, he finally, I don't want to say finally, but he threw his first interception in the first week of the playoffs, and right now his stats are looking immaculate.
Yeah, Jake Narrott and Brandon Jenkins, Jake Narrott, 7A All-State player, just got announced yesterday. Brandon Jenkins, an honorable mention for that position. And yeah, they've been absolutely dominant, just that duo right there. And this is a Husky team still with injuries too. You have Tyler Wentake, who's injured. Peyton Schultz got carted off the field last week with another injury.
He has an arm injury.
Yeah, not sure the status on that one, but
it is in a sling.
This week. And so there are a couple notable injuries, but nevertheless, they're still putting it together.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out though is coming into these playoffs, Jenkins has 1,431 rushing yards with an 83-yard touchdown was his longest for 20 touchdowns on the season. Jake Narrott has 8 rushing touchdowns with 37 touchdown passes, 2,751 yards with a 71 completion percentage.
Yeah.
That is absurd coming to end this season at 235 attempts. If you're completing 71% of those, you are putting up absurd stats. I believe Narrott is 3rd in the state right now out of all QBs, and this really just shows how dominant this Husky team has been this season.
Yeah, and also just to keep going on this Husky wagon, so to say, Brandon Jenkins and Jake Norwell just set records for Hersey against the Walter Payton last week. We announced that during our broadcast, but a quick congratulations to those two setting a school record. All right, let's shift momentum a little bit to the St. Rita team. They're backed by quarterback Stephen Armbruster. He's an extremely experienced quarterback and has made numerous big plays against these top teams in the private league division. And they're just coming off a win against Lincoln Way Central. They beat them by 3. What do you think Hersey's weak point is that St. Rita will have to look to attack in this one?
I'm not entirely sure when you bring up Hersey's weak points. I'm not trying to get flamed on any of these, but normally I think at the beginning of the season we both could have agreed that the running game was really weak on our defense.
But we also both can see that it's gotten so much better.
That's what I was going to point out. Last week against Richards, they had 220 rushing yards and they had 220 passing yards. So it really comes down to almost which offense is going to be more dominant. I feel like our defense has sort of been able to lock in. They're really playing a lot more consistent now. They know who's playing where and who's playing when. And I think they've just been able to crash the pocket a lot more as well.
And historically, these private league teams just heavy run teams. They keep the ball on the ground. They love to run the ball. And, if that's what they're going to roll with, though I think Hersey's run defense has looked very strong. Richards had a very good running back last week. I think if they're able to stop the run once again, they could definitely come out with the win here. I originally, when we did our bracket breakdown, I had Hersey losing to St. Rita. But I don't know if I've really been impressed by St. Rita. And that was just going off stats and history and the fact that this is the first time that Hersey's made it this far in, 47 years or so. I think 1987 was the last time that they made it to the state quarterfinals. And, St. Rita has yet to, they have no impressive wins. I think Lincoln Way Central last week was probably their most impressive win, where they had off a game-winning field goal. But they've played in these big games before. They've played against teams like Brother Rice and Mount Carmel, but they haven't won those games. They've underperformed. So this is just a huge game where you have Hersey, who's also, I wouldn't say that Hersey has any really good wins, like top team wins, if that makes sense. Prospect, I would say, is probably their best win, maybe Richards, but they didn't beat Ward, they didn't beat Barrington. And so if you compare powerhouse records, so to say, two teams are pretty even.
One thing I want to point out is that against Richards, I feel like we didn't get really to test both sides of the defense. Obviously, we did, but their playbook was just so consistent. They ran 36 times, and they tried to go through the air 34 times, And I feel like maybe if the Huskies can defend on both sides of the ball like that, on the rushing and on the passing, then we're going to be chilling. But I think if the other team has a lot more, maybe they have 40 rushing attempts and only 20 passing attempts, then that might wear down the Husky defense. So I think it's really going to depend on how these playbooks point out. Because one thing that the Huskies did do last week against Richards, they had 40 rushing attempts with only 17 passing attempts. So you see their rushing game coming a lot more out for the Huskies, and maybe that's what they figured out, that Richards maybe had a weaker run defense.
Yeah, last 2 points. St. Rita was actually at that Richards game scouting.
Really?
They were over, so I got to look at them. Obviously I didn't know who was who at that time. I was more concerned about Hersey winning, but pretty big boys over there in that St. Rita team. And also last year, St. Rita did make it to the state semifinals in 7A, losing to Mount Carmel. So really interesting. They have tons of experience, but nevertheless, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to go check out our Veterans Day video. This week has been Veterans Day. We love to celebrate our veterans here at Hersey. And a 100-year-old veteran, ML Hirsch, made the trip over to Hersey High School to talk to some of our sophomore students.
Think of all the soldiers that I served with.
That's a World War II veteran who's living in the suburbs, honored today by the French government.
Yeah, the recipient only 18 when he fought in World War II.
My name is Emil Hirsch. I was born in Chicago. At 18, I got my notice to report to Fort Sheridan. So in January of 1944, I reported to Fort Sheridan. Finally, we were put on a troop train, and the rumor was we were going to Los Angeles or somewhere in California, nice and sunny. So when we arrived at our destination, there was all snow on the ground. I got off and it turned out to be Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. On D-Day, we were actually in reserve, and we could get to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, to the battlefield in about a week over the Atlantic Ocean, which was, of course, filled with German submarines. We were brought to Boston and got on a luxury liner of pre-World War and crossed the Atlantic Ocean and landed in Liverpool. And from Liverpool, crossed the English Channel, and we landed in Omaha Beach. But Omaha Beach had taken June 6th. And so it turned out that General Patton had taken Paris and had gone all the way to a city called Metz. And Metz was a traditional city for 2,000 years between Germany and France. And it was about 15 to 20 miles of roadway, but it was mountainous and hilly territory. Metz had been never taken by storm except 2,000 years before. We had to take Metz by storm. So my activity was to go from foxhole to foxhole, maybe carrying something, but to show activity. But you got to be careful you don't linger too long, because they had high-powered German snipers trying to kill you. All I had to do was hold, and so that try not to have them suspect that we're going to attack the next day. They did attack very early the next morning, and at that point, after they attacked, then I came back, and that's where I earned the Combat Infantryman badge, and also the Bronze Star Medal. The anti-tank company stormed the forts, and what happened was we did take the forts at tremendous casualty. That night, we were withdrawn because we had to relieve troops for the Bulge. The Battle of the Bulge was going on. The Germans had launched it. So Patton had said that he could get in 24 hours, and we were part of the group, and I was part of the group that went to relieve Bastogne. When we got to the Bulge area, and that the stench of death was everywhere. And everybody knows about the Bulge. I don't have to tell you about the Bulge. We were part of the Patton relief team to immediately be able to turn around in 24 hours and start sending, in our case, an anti-tank to stop any tanks coming. In the anti-tank company was assigned a small town, a river town called Tiensen in Holland, in the Netherlands. And so we were there, and I was on guard duty again at the front of our command center. And a young man rides up on a bicycle, comes up to me and says, "Are you Juden?" Meaning, are you Jewish? I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Could you come with me? He wants to show me." It turned out he was the leader of the Dutch underground. They saved 250 Jewish children. And you had 250 different Catholic families taking these children and getting them false papers. After all this, we were eventually assigned to the British Second Army. It so happened that as we were driving and we come to a huge complex and the gates open and out pour these skeletons, literally like Halloween skeletons, human beings. One of the skeletons, and he's talking to me, and it turns out it was a Russian prisoner of war camp. This was now in 1945. Germany had surrendered. My time on the battlefield was about 180 days, actually, on the battle line. And I was one of the fortunate ones who didn't get wounded. So I did get what was called trench foot, which was because you can't change your shoes or socks for days and weeks. Shortly thereafter, because we were down designated, we were experienced troop, a division, we were at full strength, and we were designated to lead the attack on Japan. Beginning of August, I reported back for duty and was assigned to a troop train to take us to Camp Shelby, Mississippi, which was to be the assembly point for the attack on Japan. And on the troop train, there was a newsboy there, and he had the big headlines. It was like maybe August 6th, or whenever it was. It says, atom bomb dropped. We didn't know what an atom bomb was. But shortly after that, Japan surrendered.
All right, welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that video. All right, we're going to go back to our game day picks. I'm going to give you a quick check of the standings right now. Q-Tip, your record, you're 42-9. I'm 43-8. Will last week was 7-0. And right now, this is a big week. This is probably our last week of picks. We probably won't get another broadcast even if we go to the state championship. But this is all, it's all on the line here. This is it. I think we should do like a
I don't know. This is
like
just
an Instagram post, like
nerve-wracking.
who won.
Yeah, this
well,
is
because
nerve-wracking.
now it's gotten to the point where the games are like so good. Like before, like okay, you always had to hear Niles North, like Wheeling game. Like someone could legitimately go 0-8 this week. Because
I think in the past 3 weeks, I've really just thrown the game here. I kept
Yeah, you
taking
have been
picks
throwing
that
the
are
game.
just like for fun. Like, oh, I'm going to take this pick because I think it's going to be risky and it's going to be, and it didn't work out once. And I've just been throwing the game and, you know, I'm regretting my decisions here. I had
you let me come back.
the win by 2 picks, and then I just kept taking bad picks. If I followed Ryan for every single pick, I would have won.
Well, don't do that. Make it fun. But we have some legitimate back and forth games here.
I was trying to make it fun, and it was a little risky. And now I'm down by 1.
All right, 6 games here. There are 3 MSL teams left. One of them is the Huskies, other 2 Barrington and Fremd. So they still play. We're going to break down those games, and then we're going to do the other 3 quarterfinal games in 7A. All right, first game, number 2 Barrington versus number 23 Lockport. Barrington, we saw them earlier in the year. They've looked very good, and they just continue to roll. They beat Fremd in the regular season, and Fremd just beat number 10 ranked Lions by 20 points. And Barrington beat Fremd by 20 points. So Barrington might be one of the top teams in the state right now. It's hard to look at it that way. They dominated Elgin. They beat them 72-13. Last week, Glenbrook South beat them 38-20. But don't sleep on this Lockport team. What do we have, Q-Tip?
You know, I've got Barrington winning here. They've just looked so dominant this season, and I just don't know enough about this Lockport team to put them up against Barrington.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't know enough.
Lockport is in the same league as teams like Lincoln Way East, who's been very strong. They beat Sandburg, a team that beat Lincoln Way East. But I just think Barrington's been so strong this year. They are traveling to Lockport for this game, but I think the Broncos are going to take this one. I do think it's going to be a good game, but I'm sending the Broncos to the state semifinals. All right, next game, number 4, Fremd versus number 12, Bolingbrook. We were just taking a look at Bolingbrook's games. They just came off a win against Warren Township. They beat them by a touchdown. Fremd, we already mentioned, beat Lions. Who do we have, Q-Tip?
You know, I've always compared Barrington and Warren, and I kind of thought they were at the same level together. And
Different types of teams, but still, yeah.
I always thought they were really just at the same level there together. And the fact that Bolingbrook was able to beat Warren and Barrington beat Fremd, if you know what I'm saying, I think Bolingbrook is going to take it against Fremd. I think it's going to be one of, if not the closest game this week. And I think Bolingbrook's going to come home with this one.
Yeah, I don't really like Fremd this year, like, as I've been watching them. Like, I always thought they were a little overrated. They were the first team of any MSL team to make the top 10 rankings. And I've never really, I know they had a really good year last year, but I haven't been impressed, so to say. But they just had a huge statement win last week against Lions Township. And this week they're playing a Bolingbrook team. Yes, they did just beat Warren. But I feel like Warren is a beatable team if you have the right, like, if you match up well against them. right? Like, if you have a really good
If
run
you could
defense,
stop
and
Aaron
a really
Stewart.
good run defense, like, they have their defense wasn't that good. What, we score like 40 points or something.
Can I point something out real quick?
Yeah.
Aaron Stewart has more rushing yards this season than Jake Nara does have passing yards.
He has Brandon Jenkins across his 4 years set a school record with his rushing yards, like career rushing yards.
And
Aaron Stewart beat that number in a single season.
And Jake Nara just set the single season passing yards, and Aaron Stewart has more rushing yards. Aaron Stewart has over 40 rushing touchdowns this season.
Yeah, that's why they call him 5-star Stu.
I cannot believe that. He's got his own merch, guys. This is absurd.
Well, I mean, when you're going D1 for wrestling and football, and I heard he's the favorite to win his wrestling weight class.
We should probably stop the glaze. I know we're going to get hated for this, but I don't think we've ever seen these stats in Illinois.
Yeah,
it's absurd
across the
from Aaron
country.
Stewart.
Across the country.
Yes, it's crazy.
I'm very curious, to follow his career, see where he goes.
Because I heard a lot of people doubting on him in college, saying he's small, like he's not going to get there.
He is small,
but he
he's
can
going to
truck.
U of I. U of I is having a very strong program. Is it the type of thing like, if I turn on Fox in 2 years, like Aaron Stewart's or the rusher? I don't know. It could be. Anyway, we'll get back to this. But I again, not knowing much about Bolingbrook, but I think they match up well, probably against Warren Township. That's what allowed them to beat them. But I don't know how good of a team Bolingbrook is. And I never thought that Warren was a good team either. They just have a good player. So I'm going to take Fremd in this one. That is a road game, though, for Fremd. So both MSL West teams with tough matchups here. All right, let's get to 7A now. St. Charles North versus Brother Rice. This is the number 3 versus the number 6. St. Charles North destroyed my bracket last week. They just beat Carmel Catholic, Trey Taylor, and that unbelievable Carmel Catholic.
Trey Taylor, the number 1 quarterback in the state, got destroyed by St. Charles North.
It was a close game, 26-23. But I don't know, maybe that Carmel Catholic team is the same as this Warren team, right? Where they just have the quarterback and not much of a team around him. But that was a huge upset. St. Charles North also beat Batavia, so they've loved to play spoiler here this season, and they have a potential to spoil Brother Rice's season. Brother Rice, a team who beat St. Rita by 18, did lose by, I believe, 16 to Mount Carmel. But I'm curious what you have, Q-Sub.
This is just... I don't think anybody expected St. Charles North to be up here, especially beating Batavia. If you go back 2 weeks, you look at the bracket that Foster and Ryan did, I think they had Batavia going to the quarterfinals and beating Brother Rice. So I'm just a little confused here. St. Charles North is blowing up my head right now. What is this team? How have they accomplished this? But Brother Rice also just looks like such a strong team that will they blunder? And I think you could have said that about Batavia, though. Oh, Batavia's winning against Charles North. They got lucky against Carmel. Carmel has the one good quarterback, but Batavia was looking strong. And this St. Charles North is just such a mishap. I don't know anything about them. I don't know how they've gone this far. And they're just looking so strong. So, you know what? I said I make dumb decisions all the time on these. I'm making risky plays, but I'm going to take probably one of my riskiest plays this season. I'm taking St. Charles North.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a risky play, though. I think that could legitimately happen.
We just don't know much about it.
It's really hard to size up private schools against public schools, especially when they don't play across each other that much. Mount Carmel, we know Mount Carmel's good. There's no deliberation in that. But if a 17 or whatever point loss to Mount Carmel, is that equal with a powerhouse public school? So I don't know. But I think I'm going to take Brother Rice in this one just because I like to be traditional. And I think that they are the better team. But in the end, we just don't have much,
I'm always down for a good underdog story.
Yeah.
Like I'm on the swing set,
All right. Another 7A semifinal matchup, this time still in the bottom half of the bracket. Number 7, Lincoln Way West versus number 15, Downers Grove North. Downers Grove North, they beat Prospect week 1. Then they had a huge win against top-ranked Glenbard West. Glenbard West, I believe, was ranked number 2. And they're taking on this Lincoln Way West team who play in a difficult conference. They're down south. Again, don't know much about them. But who do we have, Q-Tip?
I don't know where they're getting the water down in Lincoln, but all those Lincoln Way teams are very, very, very strong. And I think I agree with you on this one. I'm taking Lincoln Way West against Downers Grove North.
Yeah, I think this Lincoln Way West team is very similar to St. Rita. And Downers Grove North, I think they're a really good team, but I don't know how good they are. They did beat Glenbard West, like huge, unbelievable, mind-blowing, but they played a really tight game against Prospect. And I'm not knocking Prospect, of course. I think Prospect is a good team. But I think that I thought Downers Grove North was like here, and like Prospect I thought Downers Grove North was going to go to the state championship potentially.
Do you know what did happen to Prospect on their playoff run?
They did lose 28-21 to Downers Grove North in the first round. I'm not sure how that game developed or anything. I don't know who stood out.
Also,
somebody played a bad game.
The third MSL East team to go to the playoffs, Rolling Meadows, they're in 6A, one below us. They lost in the second round.
They lost to Fenwick, yeah. And Hoffman Estates lost first round. So tons of losses by the MSL teams. But anyway, getting back to this game, I'm going to say Lincoln Way West too. But this is still another toss-up. All right, this semifinal, this is the game below us here. The winner of this game will face the winner of Hersey versus St. Rita in the semifinals. Number 13 Batavia versus number 21 Glenbard North. I think this is a pretty easy pick, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I'm still so confused about how St. Charles North beat Batavia. You know what I'm saying? Like, Batavia's coming into this. St. Charles North had them beat, and what's going on in Batavia? We thought they were going to be such a strong team. And going into this Glenbard North game, I think it's going to be closer than what people are expecting. I still believe Batavia is going to win. I just don't know that it's going to be such a dominating win to where you always take them.
Yeah, so you're taking Batavia?
Batavia.
Yeah. I think I'm going to take Batavia as well. But I don't know. This Glenbard North team, I think that they're pretty decent. But I think my bracket has been perfect in that section, as well as the upper half of the bracket's perfect right now. But I think I'm going to take Batavia just because they're just so good. But I definitely think that they're not where they were last year. I think that whoever wins Hersey St. Rita could beat Batavia and go to the state championship. So that's going to be another interesting matchup. All right, main event. Hersey has not made it to this game in 47 years, I think. I need to get a fact check on that one, but I think it has been a long time since we have been here in the third round. Tons of second round upsets, the disaster, misery. But last week, Hersey dominated Richards, and they're coming off their 9th straight wins. They basically had an undefeated season if you eliminated the first 2 games. And here they go up against a private league school. We don't get to see many private schools, and interesting matchup. Who do we have, Q-Tip?
Coming into this game, the momentum that Hersey's built up, 10 straight wins in a row, the morale that teams built up, especially coming off last year, the emotions going into this game. Last year we lost first round to Prospect, right? And then this year, everybody's like, oh, are we finally going to make it past the hump? And we make it past the hump. And then everybody looks to the next week, oh, it's St. Rita. Will the Huskies beat St. Rita? And I'm taking them. I'm taking the Huskies against St. Rita. I think we've got it in the bag. I think the chemistry on this Husky team has just built up throughout the season. I think the beginning of the season, if we look at the same Huskies, I'm not taking the Huskies in their first 2 games. If we look at the Huskies now, up here, from down here to up here, I think the Huskies have just grown tremendously. And just this week, I'm taking the Huskies.
Yeah,
not just this week, just this year, excuse me.
I think that we did the bracket breakdown, and I picked St. Rita to win this football game. And, I thought that Hersey was going to be coming out of a tight game against Richards. I thought that Hersey was going to be coming out of a good win against Walter Payton, but, maybe I thought the St. Rita team was just going to be rolling through these teams. But I've been disappointed by St. Rita, and oh my God, has Hersey looked the best. Week by week, they just keep getting better and better and better.
It's exponential.
It's building. And it's a lot of pressure on these Hersey boys to keep up the momentum, keep it going. But I think that they have the opportunity now. They've made history. They're coming back home I think they're going to break the drought. This, out of all of the teams that I have been here for, I had the least expectations for this team. New quarterback, a couple returners from last year. I had low expectations for this team, but now I think this is the team that can do it. They're a community. They're playing well together. And so I want to play a quick song here. I want to play a quick song because I kind of left something and I need to go grab it, okay? Oh. Go Hersey! Let's go. All right. We thank you for joining us. My name is Ryan Antonucci, joined here by Quentin Bursch. We're going to take you down to the field as we're about to get underway in the state quarterfinals 7A football. We'll see you over there.